Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Karen Vadney, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind successful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future expansion. Today, we are thrilled to have Joshua Schulman, founder and CEO of Schulman Communications Interactive, joining us. Joshua's company is revolutionizing communication training with services like public speaking, sales training, and cutting-edge virtual reality programs. Joshua will share his inspiring story and give us a glimpse into his plans for SEI's growth. So let's jump right in, Joshua. Welcome to Founders
Hello.
Future.
Thank you for having me, Karen. Great to be here.
Yes, we are so happy to have you here. So, Joshua, for our listeners, I like to take us back to the start. So, take us back to the beginning. What specific communication challenges or gaps inspired you to start Schulman Communications Interactive?
I think it began as an actor when I was pursuing acting and I was getting frustrated about how many auditions I would have that week and that my whole life was behest of an agent calling you and you're just twiddling your thumbs. Hopefully I'll get this audition or then will I get this job? And I found that it wasn't really comfortable in the sense of how am I going to make a living like this? How can I count on that? And so as a side job, I was in sales, and sales I did pretty well with. And I started to use the skills that I used as an actor by getting up in front of audiences. And I tell that now. I teach realtors 25 ways to sell your house in 2025. Get up in front of a group of people. And I promise you, people come up and ask you for your card about that listing. And it's just such an awesome way to prospect for lead generation. It just seems so logical. And so that's what I started doing more and more. And then that was my approach about how I did sales. And then, of course, I became a sales trainer, sales manager, sales. It was just my thing. And I loved it. And that's how I made a living when I wasn't acting. And then I realized that would really need to be my focus. I was going to be a lawyer. The 11th hour, I changed my mind. My dad had a law firm in his practice. I was a paralegal for him while I was a young actor going out on auditions. But his practice went from civil litigation to complex probate and estate planning, and I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. So I made some shifts and I love it. And then I started incorporating the acting. And then there were a lot of other things in my life that I loved doing. So I teach also acting now and voice and stand-up comedy. And of course, public speaking and presentation skills and sales training, pitch, present, and persuade, and business English. That became a very unique niche because I always loved language and I loved teaching and teaching English. Business English, perhaps. That was the most thing that was most popular because so many people were approaching me with English as second language, struggling to get promoted to managerial levels. And then over time, as I started taking all the other things that I love, chess and poker, I was always having chess matches and playing, and people asked me to explain it to their son or poker. And then I started doing clinics because some of my friends wanted to play, but they didn't know how to play. And I had a home game, and then I started having regular games, and all that became part of the things that I teach now. And it just really grew into developed into something that was interesting. I've always been tech minded. So VR, I've been in that space now for 10 years building on it. It's been in beta all this time. I've had four different, this is the fourth incarnation of Oculus. It started off with the original Oculus. So now we have what's called the MetaQuest 3. I just started talking about it because this month we're going to do poker in my VR in the metaverse. I have a building in the metaverse with an
Whoa.
auditorium and poker and chess and classrooms and auditorium. And what else? We have a conference room so people can practice speaking in those environments. So that's how the Genesis built. And then now who knows where it's going? Because now we're using AI and I'm not even going to be there. I have voice cloning to help me. I have over 200 modules that I've trained and built over the years, rather, that I do live online using programs and such like Zoom and such, what I've been doing now for years since COVID, my business 10X.
Wow.
A lot going.
Wow. Yeah, you are a man of many hats. I love what you said too in the beginning about acting and sales going hand in hand. I can totally relate to that. I'm sure our listeners can as well.
Sure.
But in order to get into that sales mindset, you have to put a different hat on or at least like flip that switch and go into acting mode. So I
Yeah.
love that. I want to get into the nuts and bolts of what you're doing now. So walk us through how Schulman Communications Interactive generates revenue today. And for our listeners or even future clients of yours, what is that core offer and how do you structure that out for programs like public speaking, sales
Sure.
training, or VR coaching?
Sure. So for years, I was an executive with a company called Berlitz. Berlitz Languages is the oldest language culture company in the world, 145 years. One of the things when I was first starting with them, I managed one of our centers in Torrance, and I had what's called classroom utilization. I had 12 classrooms. I had X amount of days, 6 days in the week, X amount of teachers, how I can fill that. And so I got very good at that. It's kind of like playing Tetris, how you organize and structure a schedule. So as a coach or a consultant or a therapist, anybody who works in the world of service and payment for service, how do you figure that? How do you scale that if you're a small business? Of course, group classes, and now with the AI and other things, I've got a myriad of different things. I have multiple trainers and such now. But how it starts with, okay, I have X amount of sessions a day I want to do. I have a price point for that. Right now, I've just now started shifting from literally 75 sessions a week. I was doing one-on-one group classes. Now I took Saturdays off. Sundays, I only work from 7:20 to 1:35. I'm looking at a big calendar board up there. But I average about 9 or 10 now a day. So typically now I took off about 20. So I'm doing about 55 corporate groups and private sessions a week. So now that can range because obviously there's a lot of opportunity there. I have programs for kids, teens, young adults. I have a myriad of different pricing structures that work on that. I really do share with folks that I want that professional coaching can be accessible to everyone. It should be affordable, it should be reasonable, but also I'm a small business and I don't want to devalue my time as well. But I also got to service why I'm doing it. And I think when people are focusing on only making money, sometimes in manufacturing, you have price points and things you have to deal with, X amount, how much it costs, cost benefit ratio, this, that, and the other. So what you're willing to work with in regards to sequence of your time and how you sell that time and whether you could do it all day, every day,
Mm-hmm.
makes a difference. So obviously my group classes, I can do 2 or 3 of those in a day. I can have 30, 40 people in that class, and that can generate a tremendous resource or cash revenue for that format. Then in private coaching, obviously it would be more and it can range. And then I have certain formats for private coaching where I want to make sure I have 4 to 6 young adults right out of college or teens. I have a lot of debate classes. I have programs I do for kids in high school. I need to make the pricing more competitive. Also, though, without devaluing my time. I can recognize that it can be more expensive than a typical tutor or a trainer, but that is fine. In the sequence of how you build something, it's tremendous value and affordability. You want to create both. But when something is truly valuable, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk, where you can take that information and then turn it and convert it into something really useful that you can do, that's tremendous value. It's 10 times what the cost that they would spend for training. And so
Oh,
if
yeah.
people can build on that. And then, yes, look, I will tell you, years ago when I had my other jobs and businesses, I would do a client early in the morning and at lunch and then in the afternoon and then on
Right.
weekends. And then as I started to build it up, I got to a point where I really looked at it and I was making more than what I was making in salary on the side hustle. And so I had to be honest and say, you know what, it's time to go. So
Mm-hmm.
I did. And I took 3 months. And at that point, then I was making 5 times what I was making in my salary. And I've never looked back. And so
Yeah.
people have to make that courageous decision and determination. Yes, they have to do the research, what's in the market space. I have a very unique coaching dynamic here. I don't, it's, and that which is makes it hard for me to scale because I can't find trainers who could teach public speaking, sales training, and business English.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it. So like my sales guys and gals maybe stop paying attention after fourth grade and can't break down definite articles and plurals and prepositions and metaphors and similes and malaprops, all that fun stuff. And my English teachers don't have business acumen or they don't have sales understanding or experience. And then public speaking folks that I work with, oftentimes they want to be the next Tony Robbins. It's the same with me as an actor. I'm not interested in being famous. That wasn't my driver. You know, everybody out there, and I work with a lot of young folks right now, are focusing on becoming an influencer, and I'm not sure what they're influencing. They don't have the core of what they're going to be able to train or teach or coach, and it's just a bunch of fun videos, which is great. But that by itself, that's why I don't do YouTube, because I don't want to stare at a red dot, Karen, and just chase followers and likes. I don't work for people for a reason. When you work for likes and followers, that's a job, and you can't stop. Now, as a business owner, and many people who are entrepreneurs will tell you, you don't take your foot off that gas anyway, but I control that speed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I slow down 1 month, but I've been in this entity with this particular training, Schulman Communications Interactive, as an LLC, this particular entity, I've been month over month, year over year for 8 years straight. I have a process flow. I have an actual thing that I do month to month, and I talk about it often in my programs. SOS, systemize, optimize, scale. What is your process flow? How can you optimize it and be most efficient? And scale, how can it grow? How can it develop? You and I are able to talk right now because I had a cancellation and I was able to configure it so that I'd be able to do this. And then, of course, next week, that program is back in. So literally, I can count for that 10 hours a day that is monetized. And that's really important. And so if people are consistent and really work hard for that, just like any athlete or any other celebrity or anybody else who builds their lives and their careers, just as regular people, we have to do that too. And
Yeah,
not constantly shooting and waiting for, oh, that next big break. This is your big break. If you work for
right.
yourself, that's a big break.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Everything that you have said, I couldn't agree with you more on. And I know you mentioned a lot. There's a few things I want to go
Sure.
back to,
Well,
but
let's
first
dive in.
I'm curious when it comes down to how you're currently acquiring these clients for SCI, which channels have been most effective for you? LinkedIn, audio events, or referrals?
LinkedIn is great, right? I tell people, I got teens or 15, 16-year-olds. I have a teen entrepreneur program, a sales program. And I tell those kids, now you can get on LinkedIn at 15, 16. It used to be not, but there's so many influencers, young kids. They should. You need to aggregate the people in your world. It is not just what we know, it's who we know, as we all know. So where are you going to put them? You're not going to create a separate CRM. Most people can't afford to have a salesforce.com. So LinkedIn is a terrific way. In fact, LinkedIn worked for me as a fleshed out website essentially before I ever built my own website.
Hmm.
And so I think, and it's still to this day, I get hundreds and hundreds of, and you have to vet through, you got to, or vet through, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of bots and this, that, and the other, but I can tell a real human being and not, and then such. And we have that discourse. I had a meeting last night, late. I finished at 10:30 last night because the next day is Saudi Arabia for me. And I had a gentleman who reached out to me from Pakistan and we were able to meet because it's the next day evening for him. It worked out perfect. It was late at night for me and ideal. LinkedIn is terrific. There is another one that I use. I'm on 14 different platforms. There's many different ones. But one that's particular, but the only concern I have for it is it's only in the United States as opposed to global. And a lot of my clientele is international. It's called Thumbtack. People might be familiar with it, and I don't want to do promotion necessarily for them, but people are familiar if you're looking for plumbers or roofers. So I reached out about 8 years ago, and I said, "Why don't you have coaches?" I'm like, "Try it." And I did. And as a result, now I'm the top pro on there. So get this, and SEO is very important in business development. I'm not going to spend millions of dollars on my search engine optimization. So if you go on Google public speaking coach, I may come up. I got a presence on Google and such, but what will pop up, I promise you, because they're spending millions of dollars on it, is Thumbtack. On Thumbtack, based on its algorithm, I'm the top pro. I've had hundreds of reviews on there, far beyond anybody than anyone else on the platform. So people can know that I'm the real deal. I flesh it out very thoroughly, like I did back in the day with LinkedIn. Remember, I've been on LinkedIn for 20 years since it's first started, since 2004, I guess it was.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
completely different how it's changed. And I always
Yeah.
had utilized it. I've been using that thing every day for 20 years. So
Yeah.
I'm no Kim Kardashian, but those 17,000 people that I'm connected to on LinkedIn are real people. People I've
Yeah.
connected to, people who've met me at seminars that I've done, events, clients are all on there, right? And things like that. So Thumbtack works really well. The only thing is you pay for the leads if
Mm.
they reach out to me. So I
Okay.
can hide my services, which is great because listen, I'm getting a lot of leads from podcasts and other things that I do, and I don't necessarily have to pay for that lead generation. But on Thumbtack, when the leads come in, I pay up to 48 bucks for that lead because that person says, I want to talk to Josh Schulman. And if they want to
Mm.
talk to me, then that's a really good, like the back in the day, the Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross leads, right? Those golden leads. And so I'm like, good. My conversions are very high. I teach that in my sales. Your
Mhm.
average conversion for most people and most product and service, Karen, is about 3 out of 10 presentations. And that's what people kind of bank on and factor in their projections.
Mhm.
I think that's unreasonable. I think that's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I think people are not caring enough or loving what their product or service is. And so they should be able to enhance that. I get pretty close to 9 out of 10. And that's because they are properly qualified, properly prospected, qualified, determined. We get there. If we make a determination, we can start in the next week. As my father would say, I don't fiddle fart around and then we can move on to the next sequence. But remember, I'm selling the product or service. In my case, my program, I'm the one teaching it. I'm the one
Right.
actually fulfilling it. So I'm not like a traditional product or something, or even a service could be sold and then someone else deals with it. And all you do is call people all day, every day. I don't call people anymore. Get me in front of, I just spoke recently, Embassy Suites in Downey, 850 people in the audience. Over 500 people came up and said, you got a card? Got a business card? I want to do what you do on stage. Can you send me the deck? That's effective prospecting. That's solid lead generation. I got to go through the rest of those.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. I want to ask that's a huge deck of cards. So are you the one who is doing all of the sales? Do you have a team behind you? What does that look like?
I do have salespeople. They're responsible for building their own book of business, and I have an agreement with what I will give them. But I have equity in my business.
Hmm.
And if I'm meeting with a client or a company, I'm selling that program. I'm going to fulfill it if I can. Now, I
Oh,
travel a lot and I do a lot of training domestically. I was just in Saudi Arabia this past year. I'm going to China in this coming August. And I do a lot of seminars and workshops and things like that. And a lot of my clients, any C suite client of mine who's an executive, is going to say, and they always have, Joshua, can you come fly out to Atlanta or Seattle or New York and train my team? So it's an inevitable thing. That's the big part of my business. The day to day, my bread and butter, I'm teaching all day, every day, keeping sharp with
okay.
my material. It's what I love to do. I don't want to twiddle my thumbs. I don't want to be bored, right? I don't
Yeah.
want anything not to do. So I've got a process and I got a family and I got other things going on and hobbies. And I get to take a break every 6 weeks. I'll take off 2 weeks if need be. I don't like it because I want to keep running on this.
It's good to love what you do, right? It says a lot about you,
Why
and
not?
I can
But
feel your passion. And it's, yeah, everything that you have said is just fascinating. I can
But you
feel
got to not just love what you do. As my mom would say that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I would joke, I'd say, no, Mom, Confucius said that. But you got to feed your soul, not just
yeah,
your wallet. And you
yes.
do, then your momentum is sincere. By the way, that's what's talking about acting. Because when people, I have more business people taking my acting classes now than working with actors because they're more fun, they're more interesting. And also
Yeah.
they end up wanting my sales training and other stuff too. But the reality is, when you have to pitch 10, 12 times, Karen, you have to have pathos and humor. It's got to be genuine. How do you make it authentic and sincere? That's
Yeah.
all, and that's acting.
Hmm.
That's acting. As
Yeah.
actors, and I believe you know a little bit about this, the idea of emotional recall and anger, happiness, sadness, contempt, fear. As actors, and in my classes, acting classes, we actually reconcile those emotions. Your average person doesn't do that. And I
Hmm.
think it's just healthy anyway, because you can look and reflect on your life and know what you're all about,
It's,
who you are.
yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. That is. Well,
Very.
I want to backtrack a little bit here. I'm curious. You had mentioned that the challenge to scaling right now is coaches, correct?
If you want to go the route of hiring more coaches, because here's the thing, if I hire, and I could hire about 500 coaches for each of my disciplines, seriously, chess, poker, sales training, I know there's a million different people there. What's going to happen is I'll scale that. I have to build my team out even more robust. And what I'm going to end up doing is being sitting in an ivory tower and just say, you do this and just sit back and maybe count some coins. That's not what I want to do. That's not going to be fulfilling for me. I know that. And
Mhm.
so I'm already aware, and I don't work for other people where I'm responsible to scale 10x, 20x what they want. Since COVID, I told you my business already 10x because I haven't even stopped since COVID, even before COVID, because I had workshops and seminars all over LA and I had hybrid already. When COVID hit, I just migrated everything online. And so those are choices and decisions people have to make. So the question is, and maybe that's a discussion people have, what is the scale? What are we
Mhm.
talking about? Are we
Mhm.
talking about 5 million, 10 million? What is it they want to achieve? Because now the work that I'm doing with AI, where people at all hours of the night can go in and choose what language and what they want to take my time and goal management class, I already recorded it. And you can take it in Chinese, French, Spanish, German, whatever you like, pay 25 bucks for it. I'm not even there. And so those are millions of downloads that we'll have soon enough. And we see how AI is really generating very quickly. But I also
Mhm.
want that to be authentic and I want it to be my voice because at the end of the day, public speaking and a lot of the stuff we talk about is a human being connecting with another human being. So we
Mhm.
want to be careful with that because AI takes away that equation.
Yeah, no, I completely see where you're coming from. And I want to ask, I'm sure our listeners are curious as well, especially if they are in the coaching industry, just to know what other coaches are dealing with. But what do you feel right now is your biggest bottleneck to growth, aside from feeling that you may have to bring on other coaches in
Well,
order?
it's consumer programs because I do corporate group programs, which are
Mhm.
great, right? Because I'm only dealing with HR or training and development or the department head. They're writing the check or they're using their company credit card or whatever, and its payment is easier. Consumer, you got to deal with all these different portals of all these people. I have to grow up. Grow up. Yeah, I got to be a big boy one day. I got to get more people on my team who can handle all the logistics, right, of payments and scheduling of having consumers. Now, ideally, this is one of my plans is to have 3 consumer groups a day, like an 8 in the morning, a 1 in the afternoon, and a 4:30 or 5 in the evening, which would cover most of the time zones that I work and interact with around the world. If I can do that, then I figured I'll do that 5 days a week. That's a huge generation because each of those groups can have 15, 20 people in them. And I can provide it more affordably and accessibly than if it was private instruction. And so that is something I'd like to do. Of course, when people take those, when I've done consumer groups, which I have in the past, they tend to reach out to me and ask for private coaching at
Mm,
one point because they got a client or something. And listen, private coaching is always going to be more effective than groups because groups go at the pace of the slowest student. From my standpoint, from enjoyment factor and getting most impact, I love private one-on-one, right? Because when you're dealing in the group format, I'm not even look, especially if it's online. If I got 10, 15 people here, I have multiple monitors. You can see it. It's kind of like Matrix. I just move them on other screens. I'm not going to look most of in my class. You can't be muted or blacked out. When you're doing seminars, I do them weekly where I have a couple hundred people. I just move them on other screens and I just talk to the lens
yeah,
for 90 minutes or whatever it is. It's not the same. I don't get that. Then I might as well make a YouTube video. But
right.
it does generate tremendous cash or revenue source. So it's a stream that is essential as part of the scale. And again, the scale always is about what is that number? And that's a personal number for that
Hmm.
individual. Someone
Hmm.
builds a business to go out. Some of them, depending on the margins, most businesses, you're averaging about 25% on your margins. In my line of work, you're like 99.5% margins.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Let's
crazy.
get into that for you. Let's get into the vision and
I'm
growth.
sorry, 99 or profit. I'm not
Got it.
confused myself there. Because if I work smarter, not harder, as my grandpa used to say, I want to make sure where I'm generating my time. So yes, I do my own marketing, I do my own bookkeeping, I have lawyers and accountants, but I don't deal. I manage pretty much everything. I love it. It's a lot of fun. I found it to be very interesting. And if it's too much, even by scheduling for the next day, I don't let AI do that. I send a reminder to my clients for the next day. If they respond back, which they do, they're we trained pretty well now. They respond back, Josh, I can't make tomorrow. And then I can get back. I said, I got an opening on Friday. Boom. So they can move it to another day that week or at the end of their rotation. Most of my competition and coaches have a 24-hour or 48-hour cancellation policy. I don't. And I'll tell you why, Karen, because people will reach out to me 5 minutes before class and say, I'm stuck in this meeting. I can't get out. I
Right.
deal with a lot of people who are very busy, busiest people on the planet, and that's just the 8-year-olds. So I'm
Yeah.
willing to be flexible. And I think that has been a paramount element of my success with coaching because some people just say, I'm not doing that. You don't let me know
Right.
within 24 hours, you're paying for it. Guess what? They miss 2 or 3, they're going to drop the program.
It's just, yeah, it's not very realistic. So it makes sense why you do that. Yeah. I want to get into the vision and growth for
Yeah,
you.
sure.
Just a few more questions and then we'll have to wrap up.
No,
But I want
sure.
to know what are some top priorities or even specific revenue targets for growing Schulman Communications Interactive, say over the next like 6 to 12 months?
As we've been going 8 year, we've been month over month, year over year. And I won't go into specific numbers because the sequences are changing. We have some very exciting stuff that's we're developing now with the VR and the AI within the next 6 to 12 months. So the landscape's going to change. But because things become obsolete and things shift and change, I've got a number of different factors and things that are going on. For instance, I did a man on the street video. That was about 10 months ago in Beverly Hills. I was just walking down Rodeo Drive, and this guy says, "Can I ask you some questions?" And I really don't like those things. I don't really want to do it. I don't know. I don't find it really interesting. And I said, okay, sure. And he interviewed me. Anyway, it was 13 minutes and it went viral on Chinese social media. Well, that became so extraordinary that now I met with the guys, the teams, and all the producers this past week. They want to create a channel for me. So I'm meeting them this week and we're filming our first
Oh, wow.
on at the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills, and we'll see. So that is they have huge scale things that they want to do, and I let them do that because you know what, this could be just one other element that we can do that can build on that. Because the
Yeah.
VR and AI stuff, it's still a timetable, right? Because we're still in this gold rush period, and it's not most people I know have never even tried VR. They don't know what I'm talking about. There's people within the tech world that all use it and they're using and they're having fun with it, whatever. It's not just for gaming. I'm focusing on the education element of it, so that's exciting where that'll go from a scale standpoint. As a small business, you can have mid-sized rev. You can do some extraordinary stuff in the coaching space. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of people think that it means you have to have a YouTube channel, or they think it means you have to do this or do this or do that. And I believe a good entrepreneur should be a heterodox. An orthodox is one who is very strict and adherent, not just religious, but just in anything, and just follow rules. I abide by law and I adhere policy. But what I'm saying is a heterodox is I just don't run my business like other people. I'm willing to do different or more. And I don't run my life, quite frankly, like other people. And do I care what people think? I don't know. The ones in my world, in my orbit, I don't want anyone to feel amiss or lost or not, don't have that time. That is essential. Anyone else may not know under the hood what is exactly going on. And when they're
Oh, yeah.
building their own businesses, the problem is they keep looking and taking other people's business as a template or something they read in a book. What makes them think that works for them, particularly?
No, I love that. It's amazing that you had such random opportunity on the street and then it turns into this whole business venture.
But
It's
on LinkedIn, when I put the screen recording on it, I said that people need to keep their head up on a swivel. If your
yeah.
head's in our phones, and a lot of people are walking around, you miss that. So it's one of those moments. What do they say? Luck is when hard work and opportunity meet.
Mm-hmm.
And then something happened, and I recognized right away. I do marketing, right? I do my own marketing. This could be unique. I'm careful with it because I do a lot of podcasts, and I don't want them all to drop on the same day. Was it Chris Rock, the comedian, who said it's very hard to make an entrance if you never leave the room? So I want to make sure that's staggered as best I can, but you all have your own timetables
Yes.
and that works the way that might. But I think people need to plan more effectively. So that SOS, systemize, optimize, and scale.
I love that. Okay. I want to ask you one more question
Sure.
before we wrap up. And so, for our listeners, what advice would you give to founders that are just starting their journey in the communication or e-learning space?
Get a whiteboard. Get a whiteboard and start matrixing out your ideas. Because if you see it, it actually happens. I'm not talking about manifest destiny or the power of positive thinking by Dr. Norman Peale. I'm talking about really visualizing and seeing it and say, this is pragmatic and this can happen. This is what I want to do. And not just what I want to do because I've done it and it gives me the joy factor. That's a big thing. On my my P&L, I actually have, I was going over my lawyer with this. He laughed at this. So what's this JF percent thing? I said, that's not for you. That's for me. It's joy factor. Because if I don't have that element, I'm not going to continue and I'm not going to do this and do that. And I can't piss anybody off because it's my business. I have no
Right.
one to report to and I don't want to report. And I love when companies reach out to me. We'd like to fold you in with us. We think we have some unique stuff to do. That might be a unique opportunity from a monetary standpoint, but not for me. There's a reason Zuckerberg did not sell his company for $1 billion when he had the chance. His team was annoyed with it, but he's like, what am I going to do? Go start up
Mhm.
another, I can't start up another social media company because he's selling it. And
Right.
that's what I want to do. And he's a young guy and he's $1 billion, $1 million. How much money do people really need at a certain point? It starts to get ridiculous. So I
Mhm.
think we need to stop worrying or wondering or aspiring to be a billionaire. How about just a thousandaire where everything's covered in your life if you live in LA?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You gave us a lot with that answer, but the one thing you said in the beginning was get a whiteboard, which I
A
think
whiteboard and
is
start organizing your thoughts and do it. Just do it.
absolutely.
Nike said just do it. And it's so popular. You know why, Karen? Because people don't do it. It's not because they can't do it, it's because they won't do it and they know they should do it. So
Mhm.
that real motivation, and I believe motivation and inspire are two different things. Motivate, rent is due Friday. Inspire, that's a great idea. That's a good thing. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to put it on my whiteboard and I'm going to actually do it. Don't
Yeah.
just talk the talk, walk the walk. And when you're working with teams and other people, make sure you're all on the same page. If you're delegating to others, make sure they're motivated or driven in the same way that you are. Because if they're just employees, remember, they don't get equity. They will never have their heart into what you're doing the same way as the business owner. It's just not going to
Right.
happen. They'll
Right.
pretend they do, but they don't. I promise you, they can't.
Hmm.
In fact,
Yeah.
they're probably annoyed that they're helping someone else build their dreams.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Joshua, that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. I want to thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and
You're
insights
welcome.
with us today. Really, your work at Schulman Communications Interactive is truly transforming how people communicate, and I've appreciated having you on with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And you can visit SCI's website to learn more about their innovative programs. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their sales and marketing through world-class systems and playbooks. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.